So why don't we kick it off? The track is about marketing maturity model for entrepreneurs or startups, if you will. So every stage of marketing, from seed to Series A, B, growth and scale and acquisition and maturity, will cover everything. And the panel here is a stellar panel who have experienced multiple of these stages. So why don't we start with some introductions, maybe a 30, 45-second introduction, and also speak to the stage of the company that each of your company is, and what you've also experienced throughout this maturity curve in terms of sizes of the company. So maybe we can start on the far end with you, Rob.
Hi, my name is Rob Israch, CMO for Tipalti. Tipalti is in the payables automation space, so think about accounts payable. That's a job that should be automated. Finance shouldn't have to hire AP people as they keep hiring. And so that's essentially what Tipalti does. It automates that whole function. The Tipalti is now at about 140 employees. When I joined about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, we were about 19 employees. So we've kind of gone through a nice growth curve. So we've gone through a few stages now. And so we're probably in that mid stage of a startup, but certainly still very much a startup.
Thanks, Rob. Joe, please.
I'm Joe Schwartz. I'm about 4 weeks into a new role at Proofpoint, but previously I had been 3 years at a company called Big Panda that sold to IT operations folks, and I joined them as the 11th employee, partnering with the CEO and a head of sales to bring the company to market. The engineering and R&D was in Tel Aviv, and we were bringing it to market in the U.S. So I was at basically the seed stage through the B round at Big Panda. And I've been in expansion stage before at WebEx through the acquisition by Cisco, a startup prior to that was that I was employee number 13, and we went through to 675 before selling the company.
Anshu?
So actually, before I introduce myself, I want to thank you for inviting me to the panel. And I'm actually more pleased when you said there's 40% women in this particular track, because my background is in engineering. And when I went to engineering, I was the only woman. And I had the entire ladies' room to myself. Okay, and I'm happy to say that I'm very happy to share the ladies' room with all the ladies in the room. And I wait to see the day when the ladies' room line would be longer than the men's room line. Okay. So personally, I was the CMO of Cedexis, and that recently got acquired by Cedexis. This is the fourth startup I've been at, which has been acquired. The previous startups were acquired by HP, Juniper, and Akamai. I have been involved in the startups from pre-revenue to all the way into acquisition, and then after acquisition, I've stayed at the larger companies for a few years and then left. So I've seen seed, Series A, Series B, and Series C stages. I've never taken a company to public, so that's my dream.
All right, thanks, Anshu. So maybe I can talk to that aspect. Myself, more recently with CipherCloud, but I had a chance to go through an IPO myself in the ad tech space, not Martech, but they are cousins, actually siblings, I should say. But let's kick it off. So various stages of marketing, we talk about funding stages, seed, Series A. Then we also talk about sort of the growth stage, Series B, maybe C, where you have a little bit more of a formal marketing team, and so on and so forth. But let's just kick it off stage by stage, starting with seed to Series A. I'd like for the panel to comment on aspects of marketing, from people to processes and technologies, Martech included, to some sort of interfaces with the sales teams and customers. Please, yeah.
So in the seed stage, what I've found is I don't think you need marketing. What you need is product and product management. And in my role as marketing, I've always included product management in marketing. So none of my roles have been without product management. And that's not true in every company. So in seed stage, what I see is it's important to have that particular role, and that particular person should be able to do product marketing, whatever is needed, because you're going to reach out to a few customers, few accounts, you know those accounts, and you're going to develop the product towards that. Was there anything else you wanted to know?
Strategy in terms of the messaging, you need to have some sort of a website, some basic presence in
absolutely.
yeah.
So your online presence is what propels you to the next stage also. So in the seed stage, you should have a website. So instead of hiring people in the marketing team, it's best to augment with people which are contractors and interns and all that. And so you get your website up and running, you have basic programs running, but it's very surgical in that you're not going broad. You're just surgically operating the marketing group then.
And I would echo everything that you just said, adding that there are a lot of people out there, and you can find them through the networks, that specialize in being those contractors at this stage. Often, if you're VC funded, the VCs will recommend a few people that they've seen their other founders have success with for that stage. And I think one thing to add is at that stage, it's frequently a lot about experimentation and validating your ICP, or at least who you believe, or some direction around who your ICP is, ideal customer profile. Who do you need to start targeting when you do add marketing and sales?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. The one I'd layer over it is that decision on who your target market fit is important. And depending on if your target market, both by role and by company size, where you land there. If you're selling more, most of you folks sound like you're in the B2B realm. If you're selling mostly to enterprises, your first marketing hire, when it's that time to hire marketing, at least one person, maybe two, that's going to be a different person, maybe more of a product marketing type person or a messaging focused person, versus if you're more focused on small business and maybe mid-size, that person better be strong at demand gen and analytics. And so your first few hires are oriented around that decision. And your marketing mix and your strategy and your messaging is all going to change based on that decision as well. So it's not only based on stage, but it's based on what your product market fit is and who you're focusing in from a company size perspective. And those things mix together in terms of how fast you need to hire your first person and which mix of different people you bring in first.
Thanks, Rob. Maybe we can start with you, Rob, on the sort of the next stage, sort of, I would say, growth phase where you raise a Series B or C. These days the BC rounds are 10 all the way up to $50 million. So that's a lot of influx of capital to do sales, marketing, and all these functions build out. So just if you can talk to, what is involved in terms of technology, people, processes, messaging.
Yeah. So people... the first person you hire is typically either a product marketer or a demand gen strong person. But even after that first hire, whatever route you go, which depends a little bit on your target market, that second hire probably needs to be the other person. And if you think that a product marketer, unless you go straight to a CMO, VP of marketing level, if you think that product marketer is going to be able to do demand gen, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. And sometimes vice versa on the demand gen to product marketing realm as well. So you need to think about that from a people perspective, and then eventually either that person can upgrade to a more VP marketing CMO role and build underneath, or you may have to make that switch over there. From the other key role outside of product marketing demand gen, in my experience, is marketing ops. You're going to have to build out a database. You're going to want to, at least depending if you're mid-market and enterprise at target market, you're going to want to have a account-based marketing strategy and build a target account list. So that has ramifications to marketing ops. Again, you're going to need marketing automation and other technologies, and that requires someone who's technical to implement that, integrate it, work with sales, have processes. So all those are things you need to think of. And the website, which was mentioned before, is absolutely critical. And it's your brand. And so if that first experience when someone comes to your website looks like you're an 80s company, or it's poorly designed, or looks like you're not a real company, you're going to lose deals. So
very important. Awesome. Joe, your thoughts?
I've also seen, hiring is super important when you're a small company. So getting that right, you don't have forever, but taking your time to get it right. And if you found you got it wrong, make that decision and fix it as quickly as you possibly can. It's easier to fix those decisions when you're a smaller company than if you're a large company as well. And the damage you can do to the company, the team, the founding team, the engineers with bad decisions and sitting on them is really bad. From you talked about the stack, the technology stack. I think if you're selling to IT buyers, which is really always where I've been, getting an IT buyer database. Right now, I've found the best to be the DiscoverOrg RainKing duo. RainKing has been acquired by DiscoverOrg. I've also seen a lot of success with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Those two combined together. And you don't really need an ABM platform at the early stage level, at least in my opinion, but some level of marketing automation and CRM and making sure that it's used and not overcomplicated. You can definitely overcomplicate your sales stages and things like that, and that can be a really hard thing to unwind, a time-consuming thing to unwind when you realize you need to unwind it.
Thanks, Anshu.
So in the growth phase, it's very important to hire quality people. I mean, it's not the quantity, the number of people that matters. It's people who can do several tasks, and not necessarily that they can fill in all the roles, but at least several things. So in terms of people, product marketing, demand generation, I've personally hired TMEs, because most of my products have been highly technical, and you can not always...
Anshu, can you explain?
Sorry, TME is technical marketing engineer. So it's your own engineer in marketing, so you're not relying on engineering or sales engineer to help you out in demos and all that. So I've, in Series B, C stage, I've hired TMEs, which help with not only events, but also with the customer acquisition process. And from a marketing stack perspective, I think you need marketing stack pretty early. The reason is it gives you it gives you a window to the marketing world, marketing data, where you can analyze everything, and if something's not working, you can fail fast. Otherwise, you'll keep on trying the same thing and keep on failing and not seeing the ideal results. So the tools that I've used, of course, I kind of take Salesforce automation for granted at this stage, but the tools I've used are marketing automation. I've used Marketo for lead attribution. I've used Visible, and for just gathering the leads, I've used LinkedIn, AdWords, AdRoll, name it, everything, and then analyzed which one works for my customer base, and then tailored it to, like, for instance, for this company, LinkedIn works the best for me, so I've been using LinkedIn. So it's really, really important, because you cannot replicate the experience from previous company to the next company. It all depends on who you are selling, what the persona of the buyer is. And sooner you realize the persona-based marketing is yielding better results, the better results you'll get.
Awesome. I think you touched upon one key aspect on the stack across the board. I think we talked about email. Besides web, I think email, having the ability to do email marketing. And I think Marketo is obviously one of the major platforms out here. And there's just a couple of other platforms as well. So let's switch topic a little bit. Let's try to bring in the sort of the powered marketing at later stages. You're generating revenue. You've got $20-30 million in revenue, maybe all the way up to 50 or 100, and you're getting ready for IPO or an acquisition or some sort of exit of some sort. Now, I think beyond obviously people are important, and technology and such. Now the scale becomes important, and comms also become important, marketing communication. So, what are your thoughts on as the company grows? Please.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned communication, because it starts very early on. It's during stage B and C also. Communication is really important, and in my experience, I've hired a PR agency starting from the very early stage, not in the seed stage, but once we have Series A, we have had PR agency. And the reason I like PR agency is because they have expertise. They have social, they have media, they have even analysts. And so you don't have to hire that many people in your marketing org. You can actually leverage them, because they're going to give you a few hours of each kind and will provide that amplification. So I've really, really had PR agency from very beginning. The other thing about PR agency, I feel is you should change them every year. You should keep them on their toes. Otherwise, because they have used every trick they have had in the bag. So move on. It's a learning process. You have to train them again, but actually, it's better to change them. And the another thing that comes from the PR agency is like, it's good to show that you're getting these many articles, you're getting a lot of publicity, but how do you compare against your competitors? So hold your PR agency responsible for share of voice. I want to see how am I performing against my competitors. So that's very, very important. And in the time when you are ready to go IPO and whether you're ready to be acquired, it's really, really important to showcase how you are doing, and to be honest to yourself how you are doing on this. In terms of demand generation, this is where actually marketing becomes even more important. In my previous company, we did 50% of the pipeline, which is pretty high for the industry. So 50% of the pipeline was generated by marketing and 50% sales generated on their own. So to meet that 50%, you really, really have to do very targeted digital campaigns or whatever works for your industry. Not necessarily digital campaigns will work for you. So be careful in what you choose. Experiment, but fail fast or move or continue doing that. That would be my advice on that.
I guess leveraging off that percentage of marketing contribution, at the last company I was at, we were at an even higher percentage of marketing contribution, and my team and I knew that was unsustainable. Everyone loved it. It was like crack for the sales team because they didn't have to do any prospecting. It actually made them somewhat lazy. So I had to plan for, without being too explicit about it. I tried being explicit about it and nobody wanted to hear it because they loved the crack. So I had to plan for building an outbound approach that was marketing led. And so I brought in account-based marketing first by leveraging all of the content marketing that companies like Engagio and Everstring and some of those that the panel up here previous were mentioning, Lean Data as well, where Karen was from. They had some great content. I cherry-picked the best of it that was easy to absorb, got it in front of the CEO, the sales leader, even the SDRs, and really and then brought in a technology as well, probably a little earlier than I may have normally brought it in, to help really change the culture to a prospecting-based culture, because I knew I kept going with the inbound marketing tactics, but I knew that they just wouldn't sustain based on the way the budgets were going and the maturity that our company was probably going to hit just as a company in general. We were no longer going to be the new kid on the block.
Awesome. I think both of you touched upon the MSP or the MCP, marketing contributed pipe or marketing sourced pipe, anywhere between 25% to 60%, as high as 60% effort. Rob, your thoughts on the topic and generally this stage marketing?
Yeah, I agreed with everything said, but just to reinforce on the benchmarks, generally best in class is 50% of pipeline being sourced for marketing. The other way to get around or to measure it is influenced. And so there's a certain percentage of pipeline that's sourced. You should also measure influence by marketing. And influence isn't like they came to a website or they opened an email, but some sort of meaningful activity. And that benchmark of best practice is 80%. So that's kind of like the best in class are in that 50% sourced, 80% pipeline. I've had similar metrics, both at Tipalti and then previously I was at NetSuite for about 8 years. So those are some benchmarks. In terms of the PR piece, I 100% agree that that's got to be one of the fundamentals and that you should outsource it with a PR firm in the early days at least. We're now at 150 people. My marketing team's 9 and then me. And we still don't have a PR person, and I don't intend to have one for at least a year. Between me and my content marketer, we can handle it ourselves along with the PR agency. And I've gone through that cycle of firing a PR firm almost every year to year and a half.
Do you agree with Anshu? Every year? You would cycle your PR agency?
Year and a half, totally.
Year and a half,
and
yeah.
same with the website. Your website, NetSuite honestly wasn't as good at this. At Tipalti, we've corrected that from my learnings at NetSuite. But you should be redesigning your website in the same time every year to year and a half, in my experience. It's your brand, and if it looks stale, people think your company's stale. And so that's the other piece I would kind of add to that. And then to the other comment around new leads can be a drug. And Salesforce and Marketo are basically broken systems in that they're only good at measuring new leads. And so if you rely only on that measurement system, you're going to have a drug for sales that'll make them lazy over time because they'll just wait for the new leads if you're good at that. And it's a drug for your CEO too, where they get educated that all you need is new leads. And the reality for the bigger deals, they're multi-touch, and the bigger impact that marketing have. And I've actually done analysis within both that NetSuite and Tipalti that proves that the nurture lead is actually more valuable than a new lead. And so measure and nurture lead and figuring out a way to do it, whether you buy a system outside or you hack Marketo or use a different system, measure and nurture lead is as important, if not more important, than measure new leads. And that is relevant in a more of a target account realm as well as a non-target account realm. You have to measure how you re-engage with current leads in the system, regardless if it was sourced by marketing or sales. You have to re-engage these folks and then measure that and which sources and the such, and fail fast based on those learnings, keep modifying. So that's a really important piece to add to your measurement system in marketing. If you're not measuring nurtured leads, you're in trouble.
I think picking up on the thought of nurture, Rob, I think at this stage where you're sort of in the expansion stage, IPO, acquisition, nearly that, you've built enough set of customers, right? So then customer marketing becomes key. Our keynote right after this panel is Marketo, head of customer engagement. But I'd like to maybe spend a quick amount of time on this. How important is it to do customer marketing? And there's always new logos from this push from your boss, the CEO, president, to get new logos and the sales. So that's the hunting part. And then how much do you do the farming? And very interesting aspect. So I'd love to get your quick thoughts on this.
So I think customer marketing, you don't have to resource for it in the early days, but you do have to think about it in the early days. When people come to your website, you want logos to be all over the place. You want testimonials to be there. You ideally want to turn your customers into advocates and have them talk about you as well. We're about 150 employees now. Our marketing team's now, mentioned around the 10. About 6 months ago, we brought on a customer marketer to be focused on that and to get better ability to activate our customer base and move it towards advocacy. And then, of course, there's technologies out there that help that. At this point, we're not using technology to do that, but we're getting pretty darn close across our account management, customer success org, from a net promoter measurement perspective, and then, of course, from a marketing advocacy and testimonials and database management, where we will probably need to complement with technology as well. But at minimum, you need to have focus within your resources on that. It's really important to get logos and get testimonials and get them speaking up at events and turning them into advocates. And it's a key part of your differentiation and messaging.
Awesome. Joe, your thoughts?
And I would really, for the company I was at, the startup that was, when I left, about 100 people, I would agree with everything you said. Where I am now, we are actually about 2,000 people, have thousands of customers, and have acquired a series of companies over time that are awesome opportunities for add-on sales. So we actually I own customer marketing in my team, and I only have one person allocated to it, and that person is doing things that are not really scalable. They're good, they're not really scalable, and I feel like I need to resource it more, both with the ability to execute targeted programs, but first with a data analyst who can dig into the data and bring in outside data and say, okay, these customers have propensities to upsell. We have gaps in customer references in financial services or healthcare or whatever it may be. So for later stage for me, a later stage company for me, really resourcing customer marketing is going to be really important.
Sure.
Yes, customer marketing is very important because you want to increase the share of their wallet. So, for doing that, not only you're upselling, you are actually converting them to be your advocates. So, for instance, for the current company that I was at, we used to sell to SRE, which is Site Reliability Engineers. It's a very local, I think, Bay Area phenomenon. It's not outside, but all SREs talk to each other. Okay, so you have the SRE who's a champion of yours talking to other SREs. So most of our deals in Bay Area were through the SRE group. We didn't have to go out and seek them. They came to us. So customer marketing in turn turns out into inbound marketing, because we were trying to promote the SRE that we knew ourselves. So it's really, really important. And in the growth stage of the company, it actually gives you the leverage to move into, to increase the revenue very quickly.
Super awesome. So I think that's absolutely a sign of maturity of a company to get into customer marketing, putting resources, people, technology, etc. So let's go to the sort of the more sort of long sustaining stage of marketing, where you have the maturity, right? Post acquisition, post IPO, scaling globally. A lot of things come into play, and based on what you're saying in terms of people, technology, and tactics, I almost visualize some sort of a Tetris of things coming in and fitting nicely, and then you're building on top of it, right? Lego blocks, Tetris, etc. So what are a couple of things that you do as you are a $100 million plus company or a $1 billion plus company in terms of marketing?
So I've been acquired 4 times, and it's been different, mixed experiences each time, I would say. The first thing you realize as soon as you get acquired, you moved from, say, 20, 30, 40, 50 salespeople to thousands of salespeople. So that's the first realization, which makes you excited and which is actually very scary, because now you are left with the task of sales enablement of these many people. And how do you go and become a part of their quota? This is a new product they acquired. They don't know how to sell. It's a harder sale most of the time. And how do you become? So that becomes the biggest challenge for the marketing organization. You're a marketing organization of 10 to 15 people, and suddenly this whole big organization is in front of you, which is ready to consume all the content that that they need you to create. They want you to be available for, and you have this. So you have to ramp up really quickly. So I would suggest, when you get acquired, have that in the agreement that, you'll get these many resources to actually help out. Otherwise, the companies, the business that you get acquired by, it kind of shrinks. It doesn't get successful. And that's one thing to be very watchful of. That's my advice on the acquisition side.
Thanks, Anshu. Joe.
So I would say making sure that, and this probably should have been done earlier as well, but making sure that your processes are in place to be able to scale, and processes in particular, and I've always been at SaaS companies, to leverage the data that you have as a SaaS company, whether it's propensity to buy models, scoring for lead prioritization and customer success team prioritization, making sure that really those things are in place so that you can scale and use the resources that you have intelligently and efficiently.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I think to keep growing at these stages, you have to get deeper and deeper in optimization. And what that means is not only you have to be better, your data has to be richer, and you have to make decisions using data. The relationship with sales becomes less personal. At that point, you have to absolutely have rich data that can prove aptitude to move to opportunity and sale. None of this MQL, MAL stuff, it means nothing. It's, can you create opportunities? Can you create sales? Can you influence? And then how do you disseminate that information, communicate that with sales? And so if your marketing team doesn't have the rich analytics and ability to use analytics and are constantly using a kind of an optimization mindset to keep making every single piece of your mix, even across sales enablement and such, better and better, it's going to be difficult. And then, of course, that's very powerful to influence sales, influence the rest of the team, to constantly make sure you're making the right pieces. The global piece is also interesting. I oversaw international marketing when I was at NetSuite, and particularly with these GDPR rules and kind of regulations, that's going to get more and more difficult. And it kind of almost leads you to double down on the US and a few of other countries who are helpful on that side.
More emails for us.
Yeah. The other interesting thing was a tech stack. So you can wait later to invest in tech stack. My learning from NetSuite is if you wait too late, security, privacy, IT, there's a lot of departments that actually lead to kind of slowing down of your ability to invest. And so my approach with Tipalti has been a little different based on that learning. And we've actually invested fairly heavily in the tech stack now, so that at a later point when there's a lot of compliance and IT and legal and privacy and security and bureaucracy, once it's in place, it's not going to go away. But if you have to invest in a lot of tech stack later, it becomes a lot harder. And I don't want to wait 8 months to invest in the right technology that we need today.
Okay, great. So one last question, 15-second timer. Parting thoughts to entrepreneurs, especially marketing perspective. Whoever wants to take it first.
Omni-channel digital campaign is actually a necessity. You cannot have just AdWords going and think that's your digital marketing campaign. It has to be omni-channel. And multi-touch is just key, because you have to have a full funnel marketing strategy. It should mirror buyer's journey. If you throw a free demo in the first interaction, it's not going through the buyer's journey of education and moving on to the funnel. So very, very important, and this is different from how it used to be before.
I'll have to go back to the thing that I said earlier is the people. Like, get the people right, and if you miss, everyone misses at times, make a change fast.
Yeah, and I'd say one, marketing is important, and so there's a lot of founders and entrepreneurs I'll meet who don't think it's important. You're not going to grow as fast as you should and as your investors want you if you don't take that seriously. It doesn't mean you have to resource day one with it, but you need to think about it a lot and invest in it and the such. And I think the other piece is, when you invest in marketing, when you think of it, don't think of like the Don Draper old school type of marketing. It's about accountability, measurement, optimization. And so those are the types of leaders you want, someone that's modern, that understands technology, that thinks about scale. And if someone doesn't, you shouldn't have them on your marketing team, at least to build out that team, because it's going to create the wrong DNA structure for your team as you keep growing.
Awesome. Some really interesting insights and thoughts coming from experienced marketing executives. So let's give it up for our panel. Thank you.